Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
The muffled sounds drifting from nearby rooms only heightened our arousal. Knowing that Natalie's voice was among them sent an unexpected thrill through me. Emily's whispered, "Just let go," in my ear was all the permission I needed to lose myself completely in the moment. I discovered her sensitive spots, drawing soft moans as she trembled beneath my touch. Her responses gave me confidence to explore more boldly, and Emily matched my rhythm perfectly as we spiraled deeper into ecstasy. She was already ready for me. I'm Victor, 55, and my wife Natalie is 52. Our two kids have flown the coop. Our oldest finished college and landed a job downtown, while our youngest recently moved out to attend community college nearby. These days, it's just Natalie and me in our suddenly quiet house. Our living room used to buzz with the kids' laughter, their bedroom lights burning the midnight oil, and endless chatter around the dinner table. Now those moments are just memories, leaving a hollow feeling in my chest. Don't get me wrong. I know this is just part of life's natural flow, and I couldn't be prouder seeing our kids spread their wings. But here's the thing. Being empty nesters hasn't exactly rekindled our honeymoon spark. Both of us, now in our early 50s, have gotten so wrapped up in our careers that conversation at home has pretty much dried up. We used to cozy up for TV shows after putting the kids to bed, but these days we're like ships passing in the night during the week, only really crossing paths on weekends. The biggest change? The flame of intimacy between us has definitely cooled. I guess it's pretty common for the fire of passion to simmer down over time. While plenty of couples probably find themselves in the same boat, the thought of spending the rest of our lives as roommates who happen to be married, with zero spark left, really gets me down. Natalie and I tied the knot in our late 20s. Back then, we were head over heels for each other. We couldn't keep our hands off each other, went for spontaneous drives on our days off, and never missed a chance to catch a movie together. We bounced back from arguments like rubber bands. Even after the kids came along, juggling parenthood and careers was tough, but we always tried to carve out some us time. But something shifted when the kids hit their teens. Sure, they needed less hands-on parenting, but somehow our connection as a couple started fading too. Getting that spark back would take some serious effort, but somewhere along the line, we lost the drive to even try. It's not that Natalie's turned cold. It's more like the combo of getting older, having less energy, and years of work stress just wore us down. These days, even when we do watch TV together in our empty nest, Natalie's usually nodding off by 9 or 10. I'm no night owl either, so our evenings typically end with both of us mindlessly scrolling through our phones in bed until we drift off. It wasn't until the kids were completely gone, sitting across from each other at our too quiet dinner table, that I really felt the urge to shake things up. When I carefully floated the idea to Natalie, maybe we should try spending more quality time together. She just gave me a weak smile and a non-committal, "Yeah, maybe." That's when an unexpected proposition from an old buddy came along, and boy, did that turn out to be a game changer. One night, I got a call from my college friend Mike. He'd just gotten back to the States after years of globetrotting and wanted to catch up. We met at a local bar that weekend, and Mike was still the same social butterfly, full of wild stories from his travels. About 2 hours into our chat, he dropped quite the bombshell. "Hey, I stumbled across this pretty interesting party scene." Something about Mike's tone set off alarm bells, and as he explained further, I realized why. He was talking about a spouse swapping party. According to him, these hush-hush gatherings were a real thing. Couples would meet up to switch partners, totally consensual, of course, and apparently quite a few people were using this to spice up their marriages. Are you serious? That's the kind of thing you only see in movies or trashy novels. I tried to laugh it off, but Mike wasn't kidding around. "Look, I can't join since I'm flying solo, but I can hook you up if you're curious. Sometimes it helps when couples hit a rough patch." I shut that down real quick, saying, "Come on, man. I'm not about to wade into those dangerous waters. But Mike kept going with the details. Apparently, there was this regular group, mostly couples our age, 40s and 50s, looking to add some excitement while keeping their marriages intact. As he was leaving, he said, "Here's the contact info if you change your mind," and slipped me a note. I was completely thrown for a loop. Back home, I was sitting on the couch staring at that note when Natalie walked up and asked, "How was your time with Mike?" After a moment's hesitation, I replied, "Yeah, he told me something pretty wild." Figuring honesty was the best policy, I carefully brought up the whole spouse swapping thing. Natalie's first reaction was exactly what you'd expect. Eyebrows shot up, saying, "What? People actually do that?" Then, "I can't even imagine. You with another woman? No way." With this look that could curdle milk. I agreed, "Yeah, totally crazy," and dropped it. But a few days later, out of nowhere, Natalie brought it up again. "Hey, did you look into that party thing more?" When I said, "No, haven't checked anything out. Why, are you interested?" She surprised me with her response. "To be honest, I feel like we've grown apart lately. Our relationship just isn't what it used to be. Maybe trying something different like this could breathe new life into our marriage." Natalie's unexpected suggestion hit me like a ton of bricks. My stomach dropped, but I managed to stutter. "Swapping partners? That's crazy talk." Natalie bowed her head slightly and said, "I know. I'm just wondering what it would be like. We don't have to jump in, maybe just see what it's about," as her gaze drifted to the window. That night, tossing and turning in bed, my mind was racing. The fact that Natalie would even consider such a thing made me wonder if our marriage was on shakier ground than I'd realized. While I wasn't ready to try anything that drastic to reignite our spark, it was obvious we both knew something needed to change. Even in today's anything-goes world, the idea of swapping partners seemed way out there. But if it could save our marriage? These risky thoughts kept nagging at me. A few days later, after working up our nerve, Natalie and I decided to reach out to the contact Mike had given us. We made it clear we weren't committing to anything, just wanted to get a feel for what these gatherings were like. To our surprise, we got an answer right away. "We're meeting next Sunday night at a luxury apartment downtown. You're welcome to come and just observe." Natalie and I looked at each other nervously. "What do you think?" She replied softly, "Should we give it a try?" When Sunday rolled around, we made our way to the apartment building. Following the instructions, we took the elevator up and rang the bell. A middle-aged woman named Sarah greeted us warmly. "Welcome. You must be our new guests," she said with a genuine smile. Inside, we found 4 other couples in the living room, making us the 5th pair. The scene was surprisingly low-key, just wine, appetizers, and casual conversation. Most of the couples were around our age, 40-something to 50-something, all looking to spice things up. They shared candidly about their situations. Once the kids moved out, we needed something to shake things up. Our marriage is solid, but that spark isn't quite there anymore. At first, we just sat back awkwardly listening, but watching the other couples being affectionate and sharing their stories started to pique our curiosity. Robert, who seemed to be running things, told us, "New couples can participate tonight if they want, or just observe, totally up to you." Natalie and I exchanged glances and quietly agreed to just watch this time. But as couples started pairing off and disappearing into private rooms, we found ourselves getting unexpectedly turned on. The sounds coming through the walls made our hearts race. I squeezed Natalie's hand, and she squeezed back, her voice shaking as she whispered, "Right now." In there, trailing off, we locked eyes, feeling an electric mix of tension and excitement. The sound sparked my imagination, and vivid scenes played out in my mind. Just picturing what was happening in those other rooms got both of us more and more worked up. We held hands, sharing this intense moment in silence. I'd never seen this side of my usually reserved wife. Her eyes were burning with a desire I didn't recognize. It was our first time hearing other couples' intimate moments, and the effect was surprisingly arousing. I gripped Natalie's hand tighter, noticing how flushed her face had become. We kept stealing glances at each other, basking in the charged atmosphere. Unlike the over-the-top sounds you hear in adult films, these were raw and real. Soft gasps, quiet moans, and whispered sweet nothings floating through the walls set our imaginations on fire. The authenticity of it all made everything feel even more intense. Sarah came over with a warm smile, saying, "It's best to just observe your first time. Take all the time you need to decide." After the party wrapped up, Robert handed us his card, saying, "Hope to see you next time." And the other couples echoed similar sentiments as they left. On the drive home, Natalie and I were too stunned to really talk about what we'd experienced. When we finally got home, all we could manage was, well, that was something else. That night in bed, I couldn't get those sounds and scenes out of my head. The intimate noises from the rooms, and the way Natalie had trembled as we listened, kept playing on repeat in my mind. Seeing this new passionate side of my typically shy wife had me even more worked up. We drifted off to sleep exchanging knowing smiles, the electricity of the evening still crackling between us. 2 weeks later, Robert called again. This time he was inviting us to a proper partner swapping gathering. After some serious heart-to-hearts with Natalie and a lot of soul-searching, we decided to give it a shot, telling ourselves, just this once. Little did we know this decision would completely transform our relationship. We became the fifth couple in the group of 10. When they later floated the idea of a villa getaway, Natalie shocked me by taking the lead, saying, "Let's use this chance to really shake things up." At the second gathering, we took the plunge into partner swapping for the first time. While we'd only watched at the first meeting, this time there was an unspoken understanding of, shall we get started? As couples naturally began pairing off. My stomach was churning with jealousy and anxiety, and I wanted to tell Natalie, maybe we should stop. But I could see both uncertainty and curiosity in her expression. Eventually, we wordlessly followed the other couple's lead, going to different rooms. Natalie went with another man, while I ended up with his wife, Emily. She seemed comfortable with all this. "First time? Feeling nervous?" she asked, and I nodded, my awkwardness obvious. "Don't worry about it. Just go with the flow," Emily said, gently taking my arm. "I wonder what's happening in those other rooms right now," she whispered, and her words sent an unexpected thrill through me. Emily's touch was gentle yet purposeful as she guided me through waves of pleasure. A storm of emotions, guilt, jealousy, desire, raged inside me, but I found myself responding with an intensity that surprised me. Without warning, Emily took my face in her hands and kissed me. What started as soft, gentle kisses soon deepened into something more passionate. Her boldness caught me off guard, but I found myself intoxicated by her perfume and the softness of her lips. As her hands traced patterns down my neck, my arms instinctively encircled her waist. Natalie's image flashed through my mind, but it began to fade as Emily's passionate kisses consumed my thoughts. I was overwhelmed by sensations I hadn't experienced in years. Emily's tender caresses and sweet scent clouded my judgment, and I surrendered to her passionate lead. Any lingering guilt about Natalie evaporated as Emily expertly explored my body like we'd been lovers for years, guiding me into uncharted territory. The muffled sounds drifting from nearby rooms only heightened our arousal. Knowing that Natalie's voice was among them sent an unexpected thrill through me. Emily's whispered, "Just let go" in my ear was all the permission I needed to lose myself completely in the moment. I discovered her sensitive spots, drawing soft moans as she trembled beneath my touch. Her responses gave me confidence to explore more boldly, and Emily matched my rhythm perfectly as we spiraled deeper into ecstasy. She was already ready for me when we finally joined as one. Emily set a gentle pace, leading the dance, and I followed her rhythm instinctively. The room grew thick with heat as our breathing quickened. Every sweet sound from her lips fueled my desire, and each time her nails grazed my back, I shuddered with pleasure as we lost ourselves in euphoria. The intensity of long-forgotten pleasure overwhelmed us as we reached multiple peaks together. Emily took control from above, alternating between gentle and passionate movements. Her hair cascaded over my chest as our shared sounds of pleasure filled the room. At the final moment, she gripped my shoulders tightly, trembling as we reached an explosive climax together. Reality came crashing back when I heard Natalie's moans from another room. My stomach twisted with jealousy. While I'd been lost in pleasure with Emily, my wife was with another man. Jealousy ripped through me like a knife. Emily gently rubbed my shoulder, asking, "You okay?" But I couldn't find the words. My mind was flooded with images of Natalie with someone else, and though I tried to be rational about it, my heart wasn't having it. The next morning, I woke to a confusing mix of self-loathing and satisfaction. I couldn't bring myself to look at Natalie until we were back in our own room. But once home, she surprised me with sparkling eyes, saying, "It's weird, but this has made me realize just how precious you are to me." Strangely enough, I felt the same way. This unconventional experience had somehow opened a new chapter in our marriage. Our relationship blossomed after that night. Our bedroom came alive again, and Natalie especially changed. She became more forward about intimacy. My usually reserved wife transformed in the evening hours, confidently initiating with suggestions like, "How about we have some fun tonight?" or surprising me with sexy lingerie and seductive poses in bed. While her newfound boldness took some getting used to, I was thrilled by this unexpected side of her. Discovering this sensual, confident version of my wife was like falling in love all over again. Our connection deepened in ways I never expected, taking us back to the passion of our early days together. The sparkle returned to Natalie's eyes, the same one that had first captivated me, and her carefree, joyful laugh returned. Intimacy felt natural and exciting, with every glance between us charged with electricity. It felt like we'd recaptured the magic of our honeymoon phase. While I couldn't share this with my friends, I had to acknowledge that our experience with couple swapping had unexpectedly strengthened our marriage. The moral implications were complex, but there was no denying we'd grown closer than ever. What surprised me most was how Natalie had taken to it. From her initial reluctance, that first experience had awakened something new in her. "These experiences have made our time together even more precious," she'd said with that soft smile of hers, and I found myself nodding in agreement. Before long, we'd become regulars at these gatherings, forming genuine connections with the other couples. Then came the suggestion that took things to another level. Robert pitched the idea. "I've secured this amazing villa. How about we all spend a few days there together?" The implication was clear to everyone. Though Natalie and I were hesitant about committing to 3 whole nights, the others reassured us with warm smiles. "We'll make it special, mix in some sightseeing too," they said. Since most couples' kids were grown and we could arrange care for our youngest, Natalie warmed to the idea. So we embarked on this intimate getaway with our newfound friends. The villa was stunning, nestled in an exclusive resort area a few hours outside the city, complete with a grand living room, manicured gardens, and luxurious private suites. Even as I wrestled with doubts, are we really doing this? Natalie's obvious excitement was contagious. The morning of, we hit the road early, coordinating with everyone until we all converged at the villa. After grabbing supplies and arriving that evening, we were blown away by the property. The living room was massive, featuring plush designer furniture and an impressive fireplace. The fully equipped kitchen was equally impressive, and multiple bedrooms offered plenty of privacy. The ladies couldn't contain their excitement, exclaiming, "This place is incredible." The guys were equally impressed, commenting on how perfect the space was for our group. We collaborated on dinner, creating a feast from everyone's contributions. That evening, we gathered around a sprawling table loaded with grilled meats, fresh salads, and flowing wine and beer. Without kids around for once, and given our shared experiences, the vibe was really relaxed and intimate. But that first night, travel fatigue won out. When Sarah teased, "Are we really just sleeping?" Everyone laughed it off with, "There's always tomorrow." Natalie and I retreated to our room and crashed immediately. Despite the anticipation, nothing happened that first night. We spent the next day playing tourist, and when evening came, we reconvened in the living room to drink. Perhaps making up for the previous night's restraint, the alcohol flowed freely. As night fell, the mood shifted naturally toward intimacy. What started as casual conversation and party games took a turn when Jessica dimmed the lights and lit aromatic candles. Everyone could feel where this was heading. Right on cue, Milo flashed that knowing smile and suggested, "Should we get started?" The group's gentle smiles signaled unanimous agreement. We drew lots for partners, Victor with Sarah, Natalie with Milo, and so on. While I tried to tamp down my jealousy, thinking I should be used to this by now, someone made an unexpected suggestion that we all stay in the living room together. The idea of sharing such an intimate space sent a jolt through me, but it was too late to back out. Besides, I felt an undeniable curiosity. When I looked over at Natalie, she was already embracing Milo. This was by far the most intense and public encounter we'd experienced. A mix of jealousy and raw emotion churned inside me as I watched Natalie, yet somehow her uninhibited display made her even more alluring. These complex feelings awakened something primal within me, and I knew there was no turning back. The scene was electric, 5 couples intertwined throughout the spacious living room. What started as discreet pairings on love seats and plush carpeting soon evolved into something more fluid and dynamic. The soft glow of candlelight cast intimate shadows as our collective sounds of pleasure filled the air, creating an atmosphere that exceeded our wildest fantasies. The room resonated with unfamiliar yet intoxicating sounds: Sarah's gentle sighs, Jessica's passionate gasps, and most striking of all, Natalie's voice carrying a sensual tone I'd never heard before. Even the men underwent transformations. Robert's usual reserved demeanor gave way to raw passion, while Milo's gentle nature evolved into something more commanding. The experience was unlike anything I'd ever known: intense, raw, and completely real. Time seemed to blur as we all got lost in the moment. The living room transformed into an intimate space of shared pleasure. As we connected with our partners, the line between reality and fantasy grew increasingly hazy. Our movements became more fluid and sensual in the flickering candlelight, our breathing and body heat merging until we moved as one. The unprecedented intimacy drove us to new heights of ecstasy as waves of pleasure washed over the room. When I awoke on the third morning, I found myself on the floor beside the bed, my body heavy with exhaustion from 2 nights of intense passion and flowing wine. Another couple slept peacefully nearby, but Natalie wasn't immediately visible. Soon I spotted her sitting quietly in a corner, fresh from the bathroom. When our eyes met, there was an unmistakable sparkle in hers. "That was mind-blowing," I ventured first. Natalie's lips curved into a knowing smile as she ducked her head. "I never thought we'd do anything like this again. But honestly," her voice trailed off suggestively. This experience marked the beginning of Natalie's growing fascination with the lifestyle. Even after we returned home, she would drop subtle hints, asking things like, "When do you think we could do that again?" Or, "What did you think about the other couples?" Despite my internal struggle with guilt and jealousy, I couldn't ignore the positive change in Natalie. While her newfound sexual confidence thrilled me, it also stirred up some anxiety. Following our villa experience, we stayed connected with the group, meeting discreetly once or twice monthly at various locations. What we initially thought would be a one-time experiment evolved as Natalie became increasingly enthusiastic about participating. Surprisingly, our marriage flourished, with deeper communication than ever before. When our kids visited, they noticed the difference, saying things like, "You guys seem really happy lately," to which we just smile and say, "Marriage gets better with age." During the week, we maintained our image as a typical suburban couple, but come weekend, Natalie would light up while texting with the group about upcoming meetups. Whenever she sensed my unease, she'd reassure me with a tender smile, saying, "You'll always be my number one. Don't worry." The irony wasn't lost on me. This unconventional arrangement had injected new vitality into our marriage. My connection with Natalie deepened, and our conversations became more meaningful. Most notably, it helped her overcome the emptiness she'd felt since our kids moved out. Still, nagging concerns lurked in the back of my mind. How sustainable is this lifestyle? Could it all come crashing down? Though these thoughts troubled me, I pushed them aside. While Natalie seemed committed to our marriage, I worried she might develop real feelings for another man. Yet being equally involved myself, I had no right to object. We approached it like an exclusive social club, establishing clear boundaries, complete discretion, and no emotional entanglements. So far, everyone had honored these guidelines. That first night at the villa remained etched in my memory. The tumultuous emotions as I watched Natalie, and how those very feelings had unexpectedly enhanced our connection. Back home, Natalie remarked, "I see you differently now." Our household took on a renewed sense of harmony. While we maintained our routine of sharing wine and weekend shopping, I sometimes worried about how deeply she'd embrace this lifestyle. But she would always emphasize, "This only makes what we have more precious." Though we recognized the moral complexity of our choices, we'd accepted this hidden dimension of our life. We balanced being devoted parents with our monthly adventures with other partners, leading a double life that had, paradoxically, strengthened our bond. While the future remained uncertain, we were committed to this path for now. It wasn't something we could openly celebrate, but it had become our reality. Each morning we'd wake up as an ordinary couple, sharing this private chapter of our lives.